Israel is recruiting African refugees for life-threatening operations in Gaza in exchange for settled status in the country. This startling revelation was made by the Israeli defense officials who spoke to the Haaretz newspaper. They said that this project was being conducted under the guidance of legal advisors from the defense establishment. There are approximately 30,000 African asylum seekers who are currently living in Israel. They have faced growing pressure from the anti-immigrant politicians, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Prime Minister regularly refers to these folks as infiltrators, and now they're being used in military operations. On Crux Decode, what is Israel's plan to replace some of its soldiers with foreign fighters based upon? Does it pass Israel's own legal and ethical standards? And how will countries in Africa from where these recruits are being hired be affected? And how will they respond to this? One man who was interviewed by Haaretz newspaper, who ultimately chose not to enlist in the defense forces, recounted how he was approached by a top security official to join the war. The official explained that after a 2-week training period, this said immigrant would be deployed alongside other asylum seekers. According to the Haaretz report, none of the asylum seekers who participated in the war effort had been granted official status so far. But here is the moot problem. The defense establishment itself is worried that the ethical concerns surrounding the recruitment of these asylum seekers and then deploying them to the front lines has not been fully addressed, even before they are being deployed into the war zone. This is a very problematic area where the involvement of jurists does not necessarily absolve anyone of the obligation to consider the values by which these asylum seekers have come to live in Israel in the first place. The Haaretz report also noted that the manner in which the Israeli army is deploying these asylum seekers is barred from publication because of restrictions imposed by the Israeli military censor. According to the Haaretz report, approximately 30,000 African asylum seekers, a majority of whom are young men, are currently residing in Israel. There are also about 3,500 Sudanese who are enjoying temporary status while their asylum applications are being considered. During the October 7th Hamas attack last year, 3 asylum seekers were killed. In the aftermath, many volunteered for agricultural work or to man civilian command centers, with some even willing to assist the military effort. South African citizens who have joined the Israeli army during the ongoing Gaza conflict could face prosecution at home. That was the warning issued by the South African Foreign Ministry back in December of last year. The South African government is gravely concerned by reports that some South African citizens and permanent residents have joined or are considering joining the Israeli forces in the war in Gaza. The ministry put out a statement in December of last year. The worry for countries like South Africa is this, that such action by some of their nationals, some of their citizens, or even permanent residents for that matter, could potentially violate international law, and it could commission further international crimes. That would put countries like South Africa, which was at the helm of the ICC judgment against Netanyahu and his government, on a very sticky legal wicket. But it's not just South Africa. Thousands of miles away in Delhi, thousands of young men appeared last year for a skill test for the role of a shuttering carpenter in Israel. This was the first time that the Israeli construction sector opened up to Indians. Up until then, most Indians in Israel previously were there for work as caregivers. After more than 300 days of Israel's war in Gaza, a labor crisis has emerged in the country. At the root of it was Israel's decision to block tens of thousands of Palestinians from working in Israel and forcibly moving them out to other parts like the West Bank or some further south to Egypt. Last October, Israeli construction companies reportedly requested their government to allow them to hire up to 100,000 Indian workers to replace Palestinians. Remember, some of their work licenses had been suspended after the Gaza offensive began. The local Haryana government in northern India, back last December, advertised 10,000 positions for the construction workers who would be employed in Israel. The list included 3,000 positions for carpenters and iron workers, 2,000 for floor tile fitters, and 2,000 for plasterers. The advertisement said that the salary for these jobs would be about 6,000 shekels, that's approximately $1,600 a month. That's in a state where the per capita income is around $300 a month. The war also forced nearly 500,000 Israelis and more than 17,000 foreign workers to leave the country. This is data that's been put out by the Israeli Population and Immigration Authority. Furthermore, another 750,000 Israelis, that's nearly 1/5 of the country's entire workforce, are currently unemployed because of evacuations or school closures or even army reserve call-ups. The Israeli construction sector mainly relies on foreign labor, a majority of whom are Palestinian. However, after the Gaza assault began, work licenses of more than 100,000 Palestinian workers were suspended by the Israeli government. While the ongoing war is being cited as the reason for Israel seeking workers from India and South Africa and other countries in Africa, the Israeli government had been working on this plan well before the war began. For instance, in May 2023, the then Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen had signed an agreement with his Indian counterpart Dr. S. Jaishankar, allowing 40,000 Indian construction workers to migrate to Israel. According to a UN report on international migration, inward remittances from Middle Eastern countries to India were to the tune of $40 billion. That's one of the highest anywhere in the world. Many Indian aspirants for these jobs in Israel say that they are undeterred by the war in Gaza. Some of them are even supporting Israel in its operation against the Palestinians. They say that they are willing to fight on behalf of Israel. Israel has continued its brutal offensive on Gaza since the Hamas attack last October, despite a UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire. More than 40,000 people, mostly women and children, have been killed, according to the local health authorities in Gaza.